Friends, it's another Sunday and it is 8 p.m. in India, and Virat Hindustan Sangam is back with its Sunday weekly show with Dr. Subramaniam Swamy, known as Words of Wisdom, Gyan Ganga. And today we have another interesting topic to discuss with Dr. Swamy. That is the American presidential election, which is taking place in November. And we are today likely to discuss on Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, the presidential candidates, and what can India expect. So with this point, I welcome all our viewers to our channel. As you all know, we have our co-host Professor Arvind Chaturvedi, Mr. Ramesh Swamy, and our technical team headed by Ashish Shetty, Tejas from Pune, Swaminathan from Chennai, Vishal Mehta from Mumbai, and Ishwar Iyer from Navi Mumbai. So I thank the team members for their support for putting this weekly program together. In the coming weeks, we may have more interesting details to share and better programs besides our weekly program. We are thinking of other venues, how to educate and empower our Virat Hindustan Sangam members and viewers. So with this, I would request Mr. Ramesh Swamy, who's an American citizen based in America, but American Indian, to please tell us and take us through the American election process and enlighten our viewers. And then have a discussion with Swamy and Arvind Chaturvedi. Over to Ramesh Swamy.
Thank you, Jagdish Ji. Welcome, everybody. So, Dr. Swamy, as you are aware that the impending elections in the U.S., now the new candidate, the VP pick of Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, who is, a part Indian. So there is a lot of excitement that has been created in the media about the pick. Because plus she's also got an African American descent. It's the first ticket of this sort to be in the U.S. elections. So there is a lot of excitement per se on this. It has, in fact, as soon as it was announced that Kamala Harris was the VP pick, the Biden campaign had raised the maximum money in one day, in excess of about $25 million in one day, because that excitement is there. So that is one of the driving forces as to what we are seeing today. In this context, there's one other thing. As far as Kamala Harris is concerned, yes, she has a Asian Indian American background. Her mother is from South India, from Chennai, to be in Besanagar, which was where I grew up. So it's got that kind of a connection. But in many instances, Kamala has always portrayed herself more to be an African American descent rather than an Indian American descent. But the excitement is there. Obviously, the Democrats, or most of the Indians in the U.S., by default think that they're Democrats. So that kind of also, maybe to that base, it is attractive. But her record has been attacked by her own colleagues in the debates earlier. Her record in California as an attorney general has been attacked severely. And in one of those attacks, when Tulsi Gabbard, who was one of the candidate, that got a lot of views, and that pretty much derailed her campaign during the debates, earlier campaigns. And she withdrew because at that point in time, she had no answers. But if you look at from an India perspective, what is key for us, and I'll ask you questions based on this, from my sitting here in the US, what I see, what can US do to help India, or how can India be a part of the player, because we need to look at the future. As of today's polling, the Biden campaign is leading, but as you always say, elections and politics is all dictated by what's happening tomorrow or the day after. Anything could change. So the real answer could come only in October. At that point in time, what data we see would give us a much better picture. But based on today's data that we have, the polling that we have, the Biden campaign, the Biden team is ahead. The Biden-Kamala Harris ticket is ahead. When it comes to India, so the key components for us, India is China and Pakistan. Everything else doesn't matter for us. I mean, the key ally, we have to have US as the key ally. You've always said that you have to have US and China as the key allies for us to counter any kind of an issues. I mean, terrorism, be it Pakistan and anything else, or even economy per se, that is the key. So India, from an India perspective, from the China perspective, what the Trump administration has been following is all these sanctions and restrictions and so many other things has created some kind of an atmosphere, which kind of a distrust between China and the US. And it could be political. I mean, he could just change it on a whim because he's always been a businessman. It's all about a deal. You give me a deal, I'll change my stand 180 degrees. It really doesn't matter. But at this point in time, the amount of essentially the fight that's going on, be it ban on different aspects of the Chinese business, different companies being banned, no Chinese companies can be traded on the New York Stock Exchange or the Nasdaq kind of restrictions. Walking back from them, let's assume that if it is the Biden as a president, walking back from such an extreme position to even halfway through the middle, it's going to be an enormous task. So I really don't know how it can be achieved without some assistance from anybody, and that could be India. Yeah. This is my feeling, but I'll leave it to you to explain as to how India can play a role. As far as Pakistan is concerned, it is very small. It's a mosquito, but it keeps getting enough feed always. It always gets more aid from the US than India in all aspects, be it defense or be it in any humanitarian aid. We don't need the humanitarian aid part, but in defense, at least they get twice what we try to get. India can get. But that is also a significant component because China, on and off, espousing things, oh, we're going to help Pakistan or something like that, might create the extra confusion. So our relationship with any US administration needs to be stronger going forward. So, and if you look at Kamala Harris's, I mean, if you look at the Democrat part of it, when you look at the India piece, of late, a lot of states, Democrat states, have gone against the CAA and 370. I think that could be tempered down a bit. I'm pretty sure the administration, Biden is more as he's a career politician. Day one, he's been in politics, so he always wants, let's all work together, kind of an attitude. He wants to settle this down. So, given this, Dr. Swamy, how can, from your perspective, this ticket be, viewed from India? From India, how do they view it? And two, how can India play a significant role in the event this presidency ticket works and happens? And how do we play a role?
Yes, thanks very much for this introduction. And of course, you living in America naturally have front row seat vision of what's happening. I have dealt with Americans for a long time. And the bottom line with all Americans is what's in it for me. That is, you want something from me, what are you going to give me in return? And that's why the best deal we ever had with Americans is a small matter, and that was in 1991 when I was minister. And Mr. Chandrasekhar, as Prime Minister, one day told me we'll have to default because the foreign exchange reserves is practically down to nil, and is all expended during both Mr. Rajiv Gandhi's time and Mr. VP Singh's time. Rajiv Gandhi, because he liberalized imports and said that you can import from abroad whatever you like as long as you raise the money abroad and then pay the interest and thereby get it. So, but he didn't specify that you can only take long-term loans. So all the businessmen after 1985 took large amounts of short-term loans, which usually tend to have a period of gestation period, or I mean a period of 3 years to 5 years by which you have to pay back everything. And it became due for payment just about the time Chandrasekhar government came into office. And we didn't have the money because the large amount of loans were taken. We were short by about $2 billion. And those days, $2 billion would be about maybe $15 billion today. So, of course, today we have got half a trillion reserves, but in that time we just had the hangovers of the Congress socialism and Soviet socialism, and we didn't have any reserves built up. So the short point is that all that I did, because all the other ministers failed. I mean, they were, our finance minister was not even allowed, was given an appointment in the United States. And ultimately, it's only when they gave me the appointment, he went in my place. Chandrasekhar didn't let me go and said, I need you here. He let him go. But that was after the solution was found. But in Japan, they made him sit in the waiting room for hours. So, I mean, they all thought India is going to default. But the Americans came to our rescue. They got from the IMF $2 billion without condition. But we allowed their planes coming from Philippines to Saudi Arabia to land in India and refuel. And it was a great thing for them, and they were mighty pleased, and so they were helpful. Now, this is a lesson which we Indians have learned. We want something free because we are great friends, so they should give us, and they got plenty and we got nothing. So therefore, they should be generous in giving it to us. That mentality. But when they want something from you, then you give them speeches on ideology and so on. The classic case is Bush had wanted. First of all, let me go a little back, if you don't mind. In 1950, the United States government offered the vacated seat of Kuomintang, China. I didn't want to give China the UN security seat with veto, the communist China. So they gave it to us. And I have written about this recently because some papers have become declassified. That Nehru said, no, we can't do that because that will put us against China. And therefore, the seat must go to China, and we campaigned for China to get it. And ultimately, the Americans, when they saw Deng Xiaoping coming and making changes, they invited China to take the seat in 1972. But from 1950 to 1972, we could have had that in UN Security Council seat. Same thing in Iraq. Bush wanted us to send 20,000 troops. Advani went all the way to Washington and as Deputy Prime Minister and said, yes, we will do that, because they offered us all kinds of weaponry at dirt cheap prices, and some of them free. But Advani came back, and Mr. Vajpayee moved a resolution in Parliament that the US invasion of Iraq is an act of imperialism. It's all there on the record. And the whole thing fell through. And imagine what they would have thought. The Deputy Prime Minister comes here and tells us, yes, that we are making a deal, send somebody to India and we'll clinch it. And then you find that instead they pass a resolution. And it's not that Advani opposed it. He went along because he was a good party man. Now, this has happened in same thing when Pompeo came here and Nirmala Sitharaman was the defense minister. And he said, we are thinking of moving out of Afghanistan. And we find that you are very well regarded. And so we want you to send some troops and take over so that our troops can withdraw in installments. And he got a lecture publicly on a press conference from Nirmala Sitharaman about non-alignment and ideology and theory and so on. So you want the United States to be real friends. Not just meeting in cocktail parties. Modi met Xi Jinping 18 times, one-to-one. And in the end, he didn't even know that the Chinese were going to do this. There's no clue. So the question is, the atmospherics is more important for us than substantive thing. Second thing, you must know, it's very difficult to be equal partners to America unless you win the American confidence on that. And otherwise, you see all American friends, they are junior partners. The Israelis have to be, because they're such a small country. And their deal with the UAE had to be brokered by the United States. Japan is a mighty economic power. but they are totally junior partners of the Americans. So is Australia. So is India psychologically prepared to be a junior partner of the United States? We won't. We won't. That nobody will accept. I myself certainly will not accept. But we can make a deal. And that deal, no matter who is the president of the United States, it doesn't matter. But when that new leader or the old leader is confronted with this Afghanistan problem, you should say, yes, we will send troops. What's the difficulty in sending 20,000 troops? We have sent for UN operations 100,000 troops by rotation. And many of them have got killed in Congo and things like that. So here, this is our next to our. In fact, they are on the other side of the POK. So if we are tomorrow going to have an operation POK, and we are there in Afghanistan, and the present leadership in Afghanistan is very pro-India. They came, many of them have come to India to get educated. So I'm posing a question that what is the cost of being just atmospherics, India is a great place. We don't like the Chinese. What the hell they are doing in Ladakh? These are not what we want. We don't want their soldiers, but we want their equipment. And we want it cheap or free. So that is the deal. The deal-making process we have to learn. And Trump was super par excellence. He's got a lot of things done, I'm telling you. Even with North Koreans, he's got a lot of things done. And take us Indians, has he not affected you by the H1 visa business? So he's a person who looks for only American interests. Biden, second problem would be, in addition to this, would be that is he being elected by the ideologically oriented people in America? And that means the liberals. The CNN, for example, there's not a day they don't abuse Mr. Trump. And you have seen on, as you said, CAA and, with the 370, all these things, what kinds of things are being said. Even where Muslims are attacking Hindus like it happened in Delhi, they say, human rights is being violated. Kashmir, without even going there, they say people there are, writhing in pain, so on. So we have so many dimensions of this problem and stress. Second, as you know, we are not in a position today to know who is going to finally win, because today's division is almost replicable to what Hillary had at around this time. So, and then it all got changed. And then ultimately, Hillary did get more votes than Trump. But the Electoral College, which is on the proportion of each state, that arithmetic went in favor of Trump, and he became the president of the United States. So I would say question number one, to fight the Chinese and the Pakistanis, do you want the Americans to be on your side? What is the Americans can do for you in that? They have enough influence with the Pakistani army to say, behave yourself. If India and China have a war, you don't get involved. That power they have. And certainly I don't think that in this current situation, they would like India to lose. They don't mind a stalemate, but they don't want like India to not lose. India wins, of course, it's a major transformation will take place. So what does India want? India wants weaponry. We in the last 4 or 5 years, we've been cutting defense expenditure left, right, and center, because I know I was on the standing committee on defense. And when the budget, which we had, one of our jobs we had was to analyze the budget. And of course, I took special interest. And the army generals who came there, the naval commanders who came, Air Force commodores who came, they all always on tears that their pet projects have all to be scrapped. And even the defense minister was, when Parikar was there, was very unhappy, and he wanted to, in fact, quit and go. And many times he proposed it, and all these other people, including the RSS, said no, nothing of the kind. And in the end, he did go. So I think we must understand that a deal with a friendly relation with the United States has commitments you have to make. For commitments they have to make, and those have to be clearly worked out. And in the case of Trump, he is totally ad hoc, so there is no. And Modi also is more interested in atmospherics than in substantive changes. The Now when Biden comes, he comes with a baggage, and that baggage is the liberal people who hate Trump and wanted him out, and they came behind him. Otherwise, in America, a man of his age being thought of is under, there's no Margdarshan Mandal in American politics, but Americans by nature, they had Kennedy was 40 and 42, and Obama was 45, that kind of range they think. And suddenly they are now thinking of late 70s. The only man who came close earlier was Bernie Sanders. But then he's out of the race now, partly because of his health. So let us ask us Indians, and then accordingly discuss with people like you in America. Do we want to bond with the United States on specifics, or in general terms that they are democracy, we are democracy, they speak English, we speak English, and the usual thing I hear, which the Americans care a damn for? Or are you ready to forget all your non-alignment and all those hoary that we'll not send troops abroad, but actually participate in giving what the Americans want and taking what you want from them? That psychology of bargain we have not learnt. We just want atmospherics, picture in the front page, embracing each other, and then headline, strategic relations established with the United States, and meaning nothing. And that is only will lead to disappointment. So the short answer to your question is, I don't know whether we should, I would advise the Indians to take a specific stand till maybe middle of October, when the trends would be much more predictable, for November 7th, when I think the elections are. And at this stage, whoever comes to power, I think the basic give and take calculus will still be available, but they may have preferences on our parties in our country. They may want someone which is a party which is more Anglo-Saxon and doesn't talk about unity of Hindus and so on. And then, of course, other things follow, and that's not good for our country. So we have a major dilemma which needs to be sorted out by some brainstorming, but that's not happening in our government. And given the kind of mental structure we have in our government today, I don't think it'll happen. Only a crisis will make us rethink, which is what happened when Jawaharlal Nehru didn't want to hear anybody on the Soviet economic model. This is unworkable for any country, even in Soviet Union. Even though the whole Soviet Union is collapsed, leave alone their economic model collapsing. And then it took a man of grassroots understanding like Lal Bahadur Shastri, Narasimha Rao, and all, who all put it together. And so I think, frankly speaking, we in India, before we can advise you on whose side to take, we must be able to deliver once we have told you to a particular site, your site to take. I mean, in terms of exchanging our views, we could tell you that as from the Indian point of view, we think these people will be better. The Chinese have already decided on behalf of Biden. They're all their media, everything is publicizing that. And they know that if Trump wins, he's a practical man. He will go for a deal, and nothing is lost. Nixon was the most anti-China person. And in 1968, the kind of things he said about China, you have to see. And but in 72, he did what was the impossible. Or 71, say he went to China and met Mao Zedong. And overnight, the thing changed because their interest was how the Chinese were ready to confront the Soviets. So, okay, we got an ally. It doesn't matter what they have done to their citizens. It doesn't matter that 100 million people have been killed in starvation. All this doesn't matter. They are going to fight. Now, today, for the Americans, the bottom line is, are you going to fight the Islamic terrorists outside your country? And the answer we have to give, because Israel has the same issue, and but the fact that they have emotional attachments to India because we treated the Jews so well that the only place in the world they weren't persecuted was India. They're refugees who came to India. So therefore, I would say, ask the Indians here in India, I mean, how much are you willing to give for what you want? And do you know what you want? That is the dilemma that we Indians are facing.
So, thank you, Dr. Swamy. It was a very good answer. So, I have few follow-up things from an observation, purely being in the US.
Yeah.
I have seen an uptick in general among the Indian crowd, even in the US. In most of the, if I want to call it right wing, even in India, Trump is more popular, which is kind of very surprising.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you look at even most thinkers, even in the US, a lot of them have shifted because everybody in the US, most of the Indian Americans are in the business or in a business area or educated, IT, being in senior corporate areas. They see that so far what they've seen, the Trump administration has been more helpful for businesses rather than any administration in the past. So purely from that angle, as you said, what's in it for me? If I look at it that way,
yes,
it's very beneficial for me so far. The Trump administration has been very beneficial. Even in India, the right wing, I'm very surprised that Trump is very popular. Number one.
Yes. Yes.
The second point you mentioned about atmospherics,
and you may remember during the campaign what a big role we played, that even the New York Times wrote about us. You remember?
Absolutely.
And me by name.
Correct. Absolutely. The second point, Dr. Swamy, is the atmospherics. Okay, I want to address that part.
Yeah.
We have seen a lot of Howdy Modi rallies here and there, but I have not seen anything tangible delivered from either side. Be it, as the US gone out and said, okay, I'm going to arm you to the teeth so that you can counter Pakistan. That's not happened. Okay, I'm going to help you so much so that you become a huge manufacturing base to counter China. That's not happened.
Yeah.
If you and on the contrary, he's actually attacked. India's mainstay is immigration, legalized immigration, H-1Bs, green cards, and all those things. He's put a clamp down on all of that. I understand Corona means a lot of people have lost their jobs, and 30 million jobs lost in the US. I understand they don't want to hire any immigrants. I get that point, but at the end of the day, it has hurt India.
Yeah.
Even though the optics look, he's very friendly to India, from a pure business perspective, that thing, I don't see that, because it has actually hurt India in some extent. This is my view, because I see, being in the IT industry, a lot of my colleagues, when I speak to them, their biggest hurt is this immigration challenge that they're facing. How are they going to unravel that? Even from the H-1B perspective, if you say, okay, fine, it is understandable. Even green card, they've clamped down like crazy. So, they've made delays so much, it has made a life difficult for a lot of these things going on. I also fear this quote unquote outsourcing, where you can do the job outside the country. If he comes, he on a whim, he would just pass an executive order and say you can't do the work out in India. So it could happen. The risk of this unknown, that Trump, as you said, is a businessman. He can just take a decision, move on. He doesn't find it, pass an executive order and get done with it. That risk does exist.
No.
In essence, we have not got for all the atmospherics, what has India got?
Yeah, I agree. Now, you may remember, perhaps 1 year, 1.5 years ago, when I came to US, you drove me to Washington. And then I think Jagdish was also there. And then I had a meeting with the topmost officials of, one was from White House and the other was from the State Department. I did lunch. I said you know they
I
want.
remember very well, Dr. Swamy. We drove there.
That's right. We drove there, and you did all the driving. So, what did they tell me? They told me, listen, we wanted to give you the most advanced planes, including leading up to F-35. But you went and bought S-400 from Russia. After negotiating for a similar thing with us, you go and buy that. So I said, why can't we buy from both? He said, S-400's electronics is 100% Chinese. And if you buy a S-400, it comes, then the Chinese technicians would be required in case you have any problem with the technology. And we can't have American advanced equipment in your country because they'll spy on it. You're not very great in preventing spies. So, therefore, now we have come to the conclusion the Indians just want to talk. And that's exactly what happened when you say there's nothing. Indians are big numbers in voters. So today, even I've seen a video of Biden and Kamala Harris saying how much they love India. You see, and our TV is scrolling all that Biden changes his mind and so on. So the question is, all these atmospherics from the American side now is because you are a large voter, you are very rich also, many of you are very rich, and you have paid donations in large amounts. And and then you see all the Indians who have been elected to Congress or the Senate. Do you have an Indian in the Senate? I don't think so.
We don't have any senator in Indian. I mean, we have Indian origin. Yeah, no. If you want to call Kamala Harris an Indian origin, that's the only person.
She doesn't call herself.
She doesn't call herself an Indian descent. She wants to call herself as an African American descent.
Maybe she'll change and now start saying I'm a Tamil Brahmin descendant or something. Anyway, the issue is the Indians who Jindal became governor of, I think everybody's talking about him becoming the president of the United States. And the first thing he did was he converted to Christianity because he said you can't be a Hindu in the United States. I mean, his father is a hardcore RSS man, and this is what happened. So I'm saying that the climate is such that you're not going to get politicians who are going to speak for India in unequivocal terms. It will always be, you're not doing this right, you're not doing this right. And they will even make it up, like they made up all this rhetoric coming from the liberals about CAA and 370 and what we are doing to the Muslims. It's all bunkum. But it's still being published in their most respected papers. So therefore, what I would say is, if I were you made me your advisor, as it happened last time, all of you said we should tell us what should be done, and that's why the New York Times had this angry, long 2-column story about Hindu fanatic India campaigning for Trump. I'm only saying, therefore, that let us first understand that this dilemma of picking who will only matter if you know what India is. You see, what is India going to do? Tomorrow you may end up as you did with Israel, go and vote for Hamas in the UN. That's Narendra Modi's government. So if your mind is not clear here, it's very difficult. So I would say the Indians in the United States should wait till about October 15th and to see whether they are the deciding factor, or at least they are part of the deciding factor, and then decide accordingly and extract your price that way for yourselves within the United States. Don't worry about India, because India is not clear about what it wants.
The only one point, as far as the campaign is concerned, the team of advisors, I mean, that also forms a crucial thing as to shaping.
Very important point. Yeah, tell me, sir. You tell us. You tell us
So
about.
if we look at the team right now, they have two senior advisors of Pakistani origin. Nobody, of Indian origins is in the team sitting advising this campaign. So it is from that angle, it doesn't smell right. It doesn't pass the smell test. That's what that's the way I would describe it. It doesn't pass the smell test. And if that translates in the even this gets campaign to even the administration, I don't think it'll bode well for India, because I have a very strong feeling that they are going to have, if the advisors are going to come from the Clinton camp,
Yes.
I can say kiss goodbye India
Yes,
very
yes.
soon. Okay, if they're coming from Obama camp, it's like dilly dally, keep
Yeah.
going, keep pushing. There is no definitive answer that we're going to get. But the biggest
Oh,
advantage.
one interruption.
Okay, go ahead. Bob.
Obama came here. His last speech before leaving India, he addressed, I don't know, some crowd or some association or something, where he said, "You can't be running this country if you're going to be tough with the minorities." And I would advise the government of Narendra Modi, please be more, compassionate about them and all. This is the speech he gave before leaving. And we were hailing this as a new turn in the Indo-US. Our media goes berserk. I mean, they have been taking some tablets before they write these stories. So Obama saying that, and so because his background is that, so you have absolutely nailed it. The advisors will draw up the position papers. Politicians in America haven't got time to write position papers. Yeah, I don't know of anybody who could decide what he wanted. Even Nixon decided whatever Kissinger wrote for him. So you hit the nail on the head by saying that look at who are the people surrounding Biden and company.
And I feel that it is easier to negotiate with a Trump team because Trump is basically a businessman. Okay, so as you said, okay, I'm going to give you 1, 2, and 3. So you give me this. It is much easier to negotiate because it's all business kind of a deal, rather than saying that, okay, I will give you this provided you give a minority some extra freedom, this, that, all these soft issues and what I'm saying is peripheral issues coming into a critical decision.
Right.
For us to buy warplanes, they will bring in, everybody should be brought in. You should not do this to minorities. It doesn't even relevant to what we are talking about. So those things are pretty much a normal thing for the liberal administration to do.
Yes.
And it is going to hurt because if you look at, there are about 5 states that have passed laws against the CAA and 370. It's all Democrat states. That's going to trickle in at some form. We cannot say no. Yeah. So from that angle, we still, how can this administration resist that? That is going to be a challenge.
No, all these liberal scholars of India, we have not given them visas these last 6 years. They are all thirsting to come to India. Otherwise, previously they would come in India International Center, X, Y, Z places. They will be addressing meetings where all the bureaucrats and the intellectuals and the press people all would be there. That's all stopped since BJP came to power. And now, if these people come to power, you can't say no to them.
Because Trump is definitely looking, based on today, is looking for an alternative to China. He as a businessman, he's balancing it out.
Yeah.
From my angle, I think India has got a very good opportunity on the table. If you negotiate with Trump, get good manufacturing piece technologies. Why can't we even assemble components for the advanced weaponry in the US? Yeah. It's a very democratic, stable country, good technology, good people background. You have good, skill. Yep. I think it is better to negotiate. It would be easier to negotiate with Trump, a Trump administration, than a Biden. This is my personal view. I'm just saying, this is what I feel as a businessman. It is an easier thing to do.